I would say the process, right? I think people just are so quick to think it came easy, right? And folks can blow up, right? These are people on social media. You guys can blow up, right? But the process in finding your right colors, your right sense of style within editing, the process, people overlook it because they'll never be able to experience it unless you're in this field.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at me. Bench mob. They're speaking the facts that you wanna hear. They rep a jersey, the vision is clear. Diamonds glisten like a chandelier. You know what I'm here for, like Marshawn Lynch. At clutch time, we do not flinch. Real brothers, we do not switch. Hit home runs with the right pitch. Who run the city? What to do when they hating on you? I feel like Kobe 2010. Taking an L, all I need is a win. Business is business, you know how they go. You playing the seats, now it's time to grow. Tuning now, gotta be in the know. Showtime, bitch, my butter blow.
I ain't seen some now.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Bench Mob ENT podcast. I have today Carlos Rosales, a.k.a. y'all mainly know him as FlicksByCarlos on IG. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Antonio. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
We thank you for hopping on. We appreciate you taking time out your schedule. For you, we just mentioned it, FlicksByCarlos. What is your origin story of how you got into doing photography and videography? What's your origin story?
Yeah, great question. So I played baseball since I was 4. I played it throughout high school. I played it similar to what you would think of like AAU in basketball. I played that like the travel ball in baseball. I was recruited by like some D2s down in Florida, D3, entering my senior year. But eventually I got accepted into NYU. And I wasn't recruited by them. So I decided to take the academic route and just call it an end to my career as a baseball player. But I still knew that I wanted to be around sports. I just didn't know how. And so I picked up a camera just out of the fun of it. My dad had been doing photography semi-professionally for a while. And I actually started photographing my brother's middle school flag football games. It's the corniest shit ever looking back on it now. You can even look on my page. My first post ever is the flag football middle school games. And it started there, and it allowed me to just find a way to still be connected within the sports space. And literally, like, people talk about front row seats being the best seats in the house. I beg to differ. It's photographers. You're literally on the floor. And I still get to connect with athletes, people even outside of that. I've met folks that run tournaments, brand managers, assistants. So still being within the sports, just through a different lens. No pun intended. It's the best thing, and I never knew that I'd be in the space in this modality or through this medium. I just still want to be around sports, and I'm blessed to say that I'm still around it, and just in learning more about the space as the years go on.
Hey, you mentioned the flag football. You gotta start somewhere. So that
absolutely,
yeah, I don't got a problem with that one, and that's a pretty dope origin story. Because a lot of people, they get to that point and then just give up on that love of sports. So for you to actually find a way to still be around sports, I think that's dope and key. And a lot of people don't have that opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. So, appreciate it. Yeah.
Shout out to you for that. What are some of your challenges? And what are some of the perks of you being a freelancer? I'm on your website and it said you use freelancing. So what's some of the challenges and perks of being a freelancer?
Yeah. So I would say being as a freelancer, you're obviously not full time. Like you have a life outside of that. And my life outside of that is being a student. So I'm currently a senior at NYU. So I have to balance that along with not even just being a freelancer, but also just marketing my page, keeping up to date. I would say burnout, honestly, right? So the reason why I started is to be around sports, but quite honestly, like the same love that we have for sports, where we feel as if like we escape the world for those 2 hours, 3 hours we're in a game. I have that same feeling in when I do photography, videography, which lets me know that I'm in the right space. But because of that, and knowing that it's something I love, I also know that you have to step back sometimes And that's just, there's a difference between the grind and just straight out burnout. And I've experienced that recently, right? I went through football season this past year, and it was the first time where I actually did a fall sport, full time. It's usually been like little basketball workouts, little baseball workouts. I've never covered football. And it was heavy. I was with the team. I was with Stepanak, the Crusaders. I was doing some other work outside with some other teams, and it bled into the basketball season, which allowed me not to cover it as much as I wanted to. I was still within the space, but not as heavy as I have the other past years. I was just branching into other sports, and I would say burnout. It's a challenge because it's not your full-time job, but you still want to compete with those that do it full-time and still be relevant, right? Just I think a lot of guys within this space can attest to this, that you have to market yourself to make yourself relevant, because you'll see 5, 6, 10 new photographers every season for basketball season, especially. So making your name relevant. I know you all had Remy. Remy's a stud, and you don't whenever you think of jersey mixes, you think of Remy, Kai, right? These guys are great marketers, right? Whether they know it consciously or not. So yeah, burnout and knowing when to stop and pull away, that's definitely a challenge. Referring to the perks, I would say just the guys you meet. I think there's like this kind of like frat or like brotherhood type of vibe that you'll get, or just a family in general. Like you'll go to a baseline and you'll just dab up people that you've seen throughout different games, and you get that through sports as well, but through media, right? You're just storytellers on a baseline, right? And everyone tells their story differently, right? So you're meeting up with fellow artists, and I think that's just dope, just meeting folks that continuously want to tell stories through the lens, and whatever reason y'all do it, whether that's to escape or a way to just showcase your talents or your storytelling. I think that's the dopest thing, the way that we create next to each other, and when it's organic and not anything that has to do with competition. I think that's the most beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, that's dope, because you get that same, like you said, that brotherhood, that same type of feeling that you would if you was a part of the sports team,
right
in a different way. And that's key. I think that's vital across the board in whatever field you are, is the burnout. You don't want to get to that point. Like, it's something that you love, and if you get burnt out doing something that you love, it could then affect how you love your talent, your skill, whatever it is that you're doing. So I think that's something that's very, very important to make sure that you stay clear of, is burnout. And a lot of people don't know how to step away.
Absolutely, yeah.
That a lot of people just don't know how to do that. And you mentioned football, you played baseball. I've seen baseball photos. I've seen the basketball photos. What sport do you actually enjoy the most photographing?
Tough. That's tough. Just as of recently, I've fallen back in love with basketball, just because I've fallen in love with kind of playing with the hardwood and like reflective type of pictures. But I would say baseball. That just comes naturally to me. Not only because I played the sport, but when I played the sport, I played catcher, right? And in baseball, the catcher is the only position that's seeing the game outward, right? The ball comes outward and it's played that way. Everyone else is playing the game inward, every other position. So because of that, I'm the only person on the field that has that perspective. And I think that translates onto my photography. Familiarizing myself with the game. I mean, you'll see other basketball photographers, they always seem like they're in the best spot. That comes with familiarity of the game, anticipating a play. And I think I have that knowledge in baseball, and it translates to my images. It also just helps being in the basketball scene. Like I'll take certain photos that are similar to some guy's concept or medium in the basketball realm and translate that onto baseball. So I think baseball, because it's a nice merge and marriage of all my interests within the sport and field that I'm already so familiar with.
It's a good point. Once you know the sport, it's easier for you to know what position to be in. And you kind of alluded to that in something that you posted on IG today. It was a quote that said, "Luck in sports photography is everything, and what separates the really top sports photographer from the ordinary is that when he or she gets lucky, they don't miss. That is the key." What is that? You posted it. So what does that, mean to you?
Yeah, you're on top of it. Oh my God. Yeah, that's great, Antonio. I would say there's a moment in like every game where it's just incredible, right? In soccer, there's only so few, right? Scores like 1-0. Basketball, playoff atmosphere. There's always that one player, one or couple of plays. Any sport. And I would say the lucky portion not only refers to the spot you are on the court, the field, but how you decide to tell that story, right? So if you're thinking of a dunk, and you have a lens that's kind of shorter, and you decide to do a horizontal where you're able to get the entire body, I think that's dope as well, because the moment you're there, right? But the way you want to tell that story, that's luck in and of itself, because you've already set up in a way. If you want to do it horizontal, getting the lights of the gym, I think luck in photography refers to how you tell the story and if you're even able to tell it. I'll tell you, 3 years ago, I had no idea how to tell stories on the basketball court. I love the game, but I think my storytelling is a lot different now. I think that goes with even just relationships with the guys. I truly believe the best work I've ever produced, videos and photographs, have been with guys that I've had genuine relationships with. Because if you're telling a story through photography and you already know the person's story on a personal level, it's inevitable for it to be present within the work. So I think luck refers to the spot you are on the court, as well as how familiar you are with the person or the sport, and then creating this image that is, ever present and hopefully timeless.
Those are some key points that you mentioned. And storytelling that's some of the best photography, is when it tells a story. Because different from videography, where you might have a voice in the background explaining it, or you might have to be able to reference like, oh, this is from this game, and people get the story. I think some of the best photography is when it's just a photo, still photo. You might not have been at the game, you don't know what happened, and you can derive a story from it.
Right.
I think that's great photography work. In that space, you mentioned your dad was doing photography. Who have been some of your inspirations in the photography, videography space?
Yeah. So I have two different ones just for each space. I would say photography. You look at my colors, and if you were to pull up Cool Mac's Instagram right now, very similar concepts. He's very what's the word? Rebellious in the way that he attacks photography, right? Photographs that are overexposed are so taboo, right? They're big no-nos. If you go to photography school, like, never overexpose your photos. But you have photos that he covers a lot of Sierra Canyon, and they're like very bright colors, the whites pop, and I just love that. It does well with just the jerseys, whatever color it is. And he also has like really wide shots where you'll have kind of like at the bottom, he'll be as wide as you can, and at the bottom you'll have kind of like I'll even pull it up. I have an image that I took of Braylon Reetvo. He's at Stepanak. And these are the type of images I get just because they tell a story, because it's so panned out. And so the player itself is at the bottom, but it's so panned out, you see everything else, right? And so that's Braylon, a junior, entering his big year and senior year, and it's all the jerseys behind him with the Crusaders cut out, just referring to his next steps. Those are my favorite type of images, and Cool Mac does a great job of telling those stories. Again, he's known guys like Sharif O'Neal, LeBron James for years, so telling stories isn't second nature to him, along with his skills. And honestly, y'all had him on the pod before. Remy, I would say, just because his story is very similar to mine. He has a brother who is unfortunately overlooked within his sport, but has the talent, is there. And I have a brother, it's in a very similar situation. He's a junior, undersized, but has interest from like colleges like Rutgers, some smaller D2s. But it gets overlooked just because, although I work in the media space, I know how this works. It's all about connections. It's kind of corrupt. And if you don't know someone, like, you're fucked, honestly. And then some people can get fucked over because of that. And my brother's evident of that. And it hurts because I try my best to put him on a platform where he can build that and then create connections, but ultimately it comes down to word of mouth. And I just love what Remy's been doing this season, right? Tahad's been out. Forgot the name of the Virginia commit, but they've been out. So it's been his brother's team, and Remy's done a great job of having having this entire, village of media putting his brother at the forefront, and his brother has had a great season. And for similar because of that's my why in videography, along with just telling stories. I want to provide players who don't necessarily have platforms because of the politics, and just using my platform to do that, whether that's connecting them with the coach or just even doing like a video that does numbers on Twitter because they posted it. That's my inspiration beyond just his color grade, his storytelling, his why is really just inspirational, and I relate to it so much.
Both names you mentioned, great. Remy, we already know that's family. The why is huge. I mean, in whatever field you have to have a why, and your why should be bigger than you. So the fact that you're on that same mindset of, hey, I'm trying to help out the players that don't get the shine, that get overlooked because of the connections and the politics that go behind it, which oftentimes can get very disgusting because it's people that have the talent and they get overlooked because this one knows that one. This one's related to that person, and that's how they got their foot in the door.
Right.
It used to be a time and a space where it was your work that spoke for you, but times has changed.
Yeah.
In all fields, times have changed. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's scary. So for you, I've talked to Remy about it. What camera he used and how he went about choosing that camera. For you, what's the camera that you use, and what was the thought process in choosing that camera?
Yeah, so I actually just copped a new camera. I have a Canon R5, and it's just a great kind of hybrid for video and photo. I do a lot of video in the summer. I do a lot of 7-on-7 work, and it's a lot of it's outside, but it's also just great in terms of its aperture for like really low light gyms. Like Bosco's lighting's awful if you've ever been to Bosco, or you know, some schools here in New York. So having a camera that's great for just picking up that lighting, photo and video. It also has 120 frames per second, so you'll have that clean slow-mo. Huge upgrade. I've been using a Canon T7i, which is like a beginner camera, for like the past 2.5 years. And I've still made it work, but recently just upgraded that, and it's helped a lot. Like the image is a lot more clear. You'll even be able to zoom in on some images, and you won't lose as many pixels. Yeah, I think it was just time for an upgrade, and it was the right one. Plus, it's stuck within Canon, which is what I've been using, and I'm familiar with the brand.
For you, so you mentioned the T7i that you had before, but you was making it work. How did you make it work? Was it a longer time period in the editing process? Like, how did you make it work? Because from all accounts, I'm not a professional photographer, but from all accounts, it's still like he was putting out good content.
I appreciate that. And honestly, people probably won't believe me if I say that. Like I DM'd a guy before when I was just trying to look for upgrade. He's like, there's no way you had that camera. I think I think learning my settings. I think you'll hear that from all guys. Like if you have a solid camera, it could be a beginner camera, but something solid, you can truly make it work. Right. Within like editing, right? If once you get like a nice color grade, or like you have a preset in your Lightroom that you know you can go to, any image, regardless of what it looked like, can look clean, right? As long as I think I'm better now at taking a shot that's clean the first time, so that there's less editing in of itself, right? So if you're in a gym has horrible lighting, I know how to change my settings so I get less noise or less kind of like pixelated images. Yeah, I think it's just learning my settings and being confident too. Like I think folks that are just starting within the space, they'll see a camera, it's intimidating. You'll see guys with huge ass cameras in the gym. You're like, whoa, I'll never be able to create content like that. Like it shouldn't matter. Like I went with my T7i and I shot huge ass games, and I was just confident within my work because I knew what I could produce, and I didn't let the thousands of dollars sitting next to me intimidate me, right? I was content with what I had. I knew I could still produce work, and my settings were solid enough for me to still, you know, get by in a sense that my images were clear, my videos were crisp, and I knew the lighting at certain gyms as well, just playing around with that as well.
Confidence is key, man. You got to use what you got, and if you know what you have and you use it to the every ounce out of it, you can make it work a lot of times more than not. And like you mentioned, like, hey, in the beginning, it's the color grade and making sure you have the right color grade and the settings, and I could fix any photo like that. So I think
Right.
that's huge, and that's something that Remy has talked to me about too. Like, hey, we're not Showtime. We don't have 6 cameras to do the podcast. You gotta use whatever you got and try to get the best quality out of it as possible.
Right.
What's one thing that people do not know or overlook about the photography and the videography space?
Great question. Great question. Huh. One thing they overlook about the space. I would say the process. I would say that, right? Because you see guys, like huge guys on the baseline and they're with huge followings, right? But at one point or another, those guys still came to those games, right? And had all the confidence in the world with 300 fucking followers. And I would say the process, right? I think people just are so quick to think it came easy, right? And folks can blow up, right? These are people on social media. You guys can blow up, right? But the process in finding your right colors, your right sense of style within editing, right? There's a lot of guys that like more slow-mo, heavy on R&B now, guys that like more hip hop on their mixes. I think the process in of itself people overlook, but I think that just comes with familiarity of the scene, right? Guys that are not within this field look at guys with 7,000, 8,000 followers. They have no idea someone with like 800 followers could be gross, but you're not looking at that because you're so wound up on the numbers, which frankly don't fucking matter, right? Like I was getting hired by guys with like 800 followers, and I was happy as fuck. I was thrilled but I knew that I could produce good work, right? So I think the process people overlook it because they'll never be able to experience it unless you're in this field.
For you, for those, and you kind of, if anybody's paying attention, there's bits of wisdom all throughout so far of the episode. But if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring photographers, what would it be?
I would just say network. Like even if like regardless of who you are, how big you are, like just have just balls to just go up to anyone. Like when maybe 2 years back when I didn't think I had a following, which I don't care about. Frankly, I don't care. I love the community. I just don't care about the following. It's growing, but I don't care about the numbers at all. I would say just network. Like I would go up to these games scared as fuck, but by halftime I would be having conversations with guys like Captured by Mike or Moving Pictures. These are more like local New York guys, or Images by Na or Luna Eclipse, or these are just guys that are big within the tri-state area. Just because I wanted to learn, right? And if you go in scared, that's okay. That's completely normal, right? But I think the only way you'll learn is by growing and networking. And even if you don't get an opportunity from this network, but this person knows your name, and remembers you by you were that photographer who just started out and wanted so much to learn. I think that eagerness to learn and never be satisfied is what's going to take you to the next level. And just knowing to invest in yourself, because it's a process. For me, I didn't see growth until 2 years. This year around, again, I don't care about numbers, but this time of year, last year, I was at 500 followers on the brink of quitting. I was like, numbers aren't doing anything. I'm not growing. And then I had my most successful year. I grew like 1,500 followers. And again, I don't care about the followers, but like I think that it's at the end of the day, it's like a testament to, people messing with your work, right? Like photography is and Instagram, it's a combination of your community and how much your growth, your work is speaking to people. So I was not beneficial. I was fortunate enough to be in so many spaces last year, whether that be basketball, football, so many other sports. But that's only because I was able to invest in myself, and I knew that deep down, I was still going to be able to produce great content regardless of the numbers. So continue to network and just never be scared to ask questions. Like a lot of my greatest projects that I've been able to work on, it just started off with the hello on a baseline. So you just truly never know who you're standing next to, and what that person may have saw in you that you have yet to see in yourself.
That's facts. Networking is huge. Like, I reached out to you. I didn't know if you would say yes or not. I didn't know what your schedule was like. I didn't know if you would even respond. It was one day I was like, you know what? Let me put myself out there. I'm about to ask any and everybody who want to get interviewed if you want to be on the show. A lot of people didn't respond, but then we got FlicksByCarlos. He responded. So again, I appreciate you hopping on and responding. It is a scary thing to network. It is a scary thing to put yourself out there and possibly hear no. But I can testify with having FlicksByCarlos on, every 1,000 no's, you're going to get a yes. And you never know what that yes is going to blossom into. You never know. So definitely network, put yourself out there. We are now in the last segment of the show. Every time we have a guest, we call this the fourth quarter. This is the last end of it. What's your go-to meal?
So it's a cultural meal. So I'm El Salvadorian, and it's pupusas, which is it's a tortilla, and it has like rice and it has beans and some cheese inside. It's great, and you eat it with like some like lettuce on top with some like tomato sauce. Slaps. It's great.
Gotta try that out for sure one time. It definitely sounds good. For you, being in the space that you're in so far, and you photographed plenty of athletes, you worked at different schools, who would be your dream athlete to photographer, and who would be your dream team to work with, both like to do photography, videography for? Who's your dream athlete, and who would be the dream team that you would like to go and create content for them?
Yeah. So for athlete, I may have the chance to this summer. It's Stewie. She's in New York this season. They pulled through. Katie fucked us over because he pulled her in and then just left to Phoenix, which is really fucked. But he got her here, which is great. He's growing the women's game. But I've been a huge fan since college. I watched her 4 years. Watched her go to Seattle and kill. And then coming over to New York and pairing up with Sabrina Ionescu. I've shot some Liberty games, and I'm excited to shoot her this season just because I love her game. I just hope I'm not starstruck and like get caught like watching for like a couple of sessions. I did that a couple of times at the Liberty game. I was just like, holy shit, this is a WNBA game. But hopefully everything falls through and I'll be able to take some shots at her. Just because that environment's electric. I did the Chicago Sky Liberty last year, and that was just electric. Just seeing Candace Parker work, like her pregame routine was like 30 minutes, and it was like the cleanest routine I've ever seen. The whole gym was silent, just watching her just work. It was incredible. I can only imagine what Stewie's like. And then your other question was team. That's great. I would say team. This is all time, or this is current?
All the time, whatever you want.
Yeah.
You could go to the baseball. You want to photograph the Yankees, the Mets.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to go.
So I'm a Mets fan, but I enjoy baseball. I love baseball. And the 2009 Yankees were arguably one of the best teams of all time. They won the World Series, and they had Teixeira, Jeter, A-Rod, Cano, just so many personalities, so many fucking Hall of Famers. And I think that team, because I grew up watching baseball because the only channel we had available was the Yes channel. So I grew up on the Yankees, but I'm now diehard Mets fan. I've switched over to Queens, but I would say that team. Jeter's one of my favorite players, and A-Rod before the Royds is one of my favorite players. So I would say them. It would just be incredible to be around so many guys that are masters of their craft, and something that like I grew up watching. Like I grew up watching Posada as a catcher, and like he was my idol. So being around them, maybe even for like a series, would be incredible.
Speaking of, so how do you see super early predictions? How do you see the MLB season going, especially for your Mets?
Yeah,
Greg is on our show. He's a Mets fan. He said World Series is the ceiling. World Series, they should go there as long as they get past the Braves. But he has them World Series.
right. I want to say that too, but I'm a Mets fan, and I think we're just unfortunately just realists, right? We have the biggest payroll in MLB. We had that last year, and we couldn't get out of the first round. I want to say we're gonna get to the World Series, but realistically, I think it'll be the Padres or the Yankees. I think the Yankees are gonna click this season. They have to, man, because they've locked up Judge, or the Padres, man. But Tatis is out for the first couple games. I think either of those teams will come out of the AL. I know it's a toss-up. I would love to see the Dodgers. They're stacked this year, but they always choke. So, but it'd be incredible just for baseball if we got a Yankees Dodgers World Series, two of the biggest markets, New York, LA. It's good for baseball, and if people think that sports are as calculated or as story written as they are, it'd be a great year. What better year to have an LA New York World Series?
That would be wild. But to your point, the Dodgers,
Yeah, yeah.
they gonna choke. They will definitely choke. We got two more before we get you out of here. Who do you have winning the NBA championship this year?
Great question. I think I'll do East West and I'll give you that.
Okay.
So I think I've got the Celtics coming out of the East. I think they're gonna click. They're just fooling around right now. I don't know why. They just lost to the Knicks. That was embarrassing. Great for New York, but that was awful. I think the Nuggets are gonna come out of the West. I think Jokic is gonna pull it out. He's had a great season. He's due. It's probably an awful prediction, but I want the Nuggets to win it all. I want Jokic to win it. I'm tired of seeing Giannis too in the finals and the Warriors. I want someone else to win it. So I'd love the Nuggets to win, but realistically, I think it'll be the Bucks or the Celtics coming out of the East and winning it all.
Got it. And before we get you out of here, are you more movies or TV?
TV show. TV show.
Top 5 TV shows all time. Your top 5.
All time. All right. So keep in mind, I'm 21 years old. My TV shows are like really biased and more like Netflix centered. So top 1 is Friends, and that's probably because I go to school in the city where a lot of it's filmed. So I'm around that. I'm living a huge fanboy life just going there. Friends. After that, can't go wrong with SpongeBob, number 2. 3. I was always really into neurology growing up, and so I love Manifest. And all of that. I love what they have going on there. It got confusing this last season, but I love that. Outer Banks is just great. I grew up on a lot of mystery books, and that's like it's a treasure hunt. So I just love Outer Banks. Then 5. Again, I'm a huge mystery bug. So rare recent shows, but I'm huge on anything mystery related.
Gotcha. It's all connected. You talking about Manifest? It's all connected. Oh man, yo! Thank you for taking time out of your schedule, your busy schedule, to hop on with us. You already know the deal. This is the house rules. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. This will be out on all streaming platforms and on YouTube. FlicksByCarlos. Y'all know the vibes. If you stay ready, you don't gotta get ready. Bench mob, we out. Peace.